as I wrap up the debate, I am also mindful that the Honourable Member for Christchurch South would have tried to intimate a number of things in relation to this particular piece of legislation. I believe the context in which the Honourable Member for St. Joseph placed this particular bill presented a picture and a background that sometimes you have to do your research to see where legislation has started, to give a perspective as it relates to whether your party at any point in the history of this parliament has been instrumental in bringing that particular piece of legislation. Sometimes that shapes your discourse in your presentation when amendments comes, or it should. And sometimes it means that you may have to deviate from a position because over time, positions will change that may not necessarily reflect what would have transpired and what would have brought about that particular legislation several years prior. That said, I believe at the end of the Honourable Member for Christchurch South's presentation, it became clearer to him, as I saw his face across the floor, that perhaps in trying to be critical of the bill, in trying to raise a number of issues that really were red herrings, that some thought perhaps had to be given to whether it was that his administration did not in fact support the fixed penalty when it first came, but also no doubt should be supporting it now, given that the modernization is something that the entire country, whether you support the government or you don't support the government, that it is something that certainly has become necessary for the changes to be made to the system. Now, he raised a number of questions in relation to things that I believe should be within the Leader of the Opposition's certain knowledge, and if not, those who shadow the particular Ministry of Public Works should also be able to do their necessary research. One of the questions he raised was whether or not there was a position by the government as it relates to the tint legislation. And in my opening, Mr. Speaker, I made it extremely and abundantly clear that the Road Traffic Act had been amended previously to be able to make amendments to the tint, for the Road Traffic Act to be amended to deal with tint. I also made the point that it had been amended in other ways as well, and that this was, again, another attempt by this administration certainly to make those changes. Now, we came in September and we made the amendment to the bill. We brought the regulations. We subsequently indicated in that, and certainly in that particular bill, it is clearly and expressly stated that a 90-day moratorium was going to be given to the country to be able to facilitate compliance with the legislation. We engaged a number of persons to be able to allow the general public to be able to go to various testing sites, because this administration recognized that many Barbadians would have wanted to be able to have the benefit of being able to determine whether their particular tint on their vehicles met the necessary requirements by law. And that came to an end on the 31st of December. The legislation that we passed in this chamber in September made it clear that the law would take effect on the first day of December of 2025. And I want to make it abundantly clear that that legislation has in fact taken effect. Put simply, Mr. Speaker, the police, who have the responsibility for stopping vehicles, can basically use that legislation as they see fit if they determine that someone is not compliant with the law. And therefore, if you go back from Barbados Today to the Nation newspaper, and I've looked online and I see even as far as Starbrook newspaper in Guyana, it has been reported extensively, not only that the tint legislation in Barbados took effect on the first day of December, but also in particular in Guyana, they have gone on to ensure that they're also moving in a similar direction. And their tint legislation took effect the first day of January 2026 with a moratorium of 3 months. And they are following suit in the same vein as Barbados. I will leave that there, Mr. Speaker, because while there was no point of order to be made while the Honourable Member was making his questions known or putting his questions, I believe as I close that it is important to be able to answer the question once and for all for the general public. The tint legislation took effect on the first day of December of 2025. The Honourable Member also for Christchurch South sought to make more sport at the fact that pothole patchers are coming to Barbados, and I said there have 3 of them have landed in Barbados already. He spoke about them landing at the Grantley Adams International Airport. Well, they've landed at the Barbados port, but I don't expect that one who has not served in the cabinet of Barbados will understand how either government works or certainly understand the processes that are associated with the importation of these items of equipment. But to put the record straight, this administration has used numerous mechanisms for being able to address the issues of roads. As I said earlier, we have been faced with not only the poor degradation of our road infrastructure because the last administration saw it fit to do nothing, or in some cases to do very little to sustain the road infrastructure. We have had those issues of poor rehabilitation coupled with climate change, which the intensity of the rainfall, it isn't something that I can make up. The government of Barbados can't make it up. We have all had issues in our communities across Barbados where we've been called out of bed in the wee hours of the morning sometimes to deal with intense, unexpected rainfall, falling for several minutes, sometimes hours, and resulting often in flooding and destruction of homes, of roads, of bridges, and other infrastructure. And whether that is infrastructure that has already recently been done, or whether it is infrastructure that has been constructed for several years prior, the reality is that we are seeing an intensity that in fact led this administration to explore the whole issue of roller compacted concrete, building concrete roads, and in reintroducing that into our landscape, because we recognize that just the traditional asphalt type road was not going to be sufficient to be able to sustain the changes in the way that the climate has a direct impact on destroying road infrastructure. Now, that is not to say, Mr. Speaker, that we do not need to maintain the road infrastructure. And it is not to say that we have relieved on our responsibility in any way to be able to do such maintenance. We have our teams in-house that do pothole patching. We have embarked on being able to order pothole patching machines. 3 of them are here. 3 will arrive in another week or so. We start the training with our staff, and in short order, we will have those teams on the road working for the people of Barbados. But the Honourable Member for Christchurch South should be aware, and if he's not aware, I will enlighten him, that you do not place an order today for pothole patching machines or any equipment that is not on island, and by the drop of a hat, that equipment lands on island. These things take time, they take time to procure, and therefore we did not plan it against the eve of an election or on the heels of an election, but simply we planned it to ensure that we could time it with the period of time that in the last few years, this administration and certainly my ministry has had to change the roadworks program, because we've had to change it to take into account that between January and June, when it is usually dry for the most part, we have to do and accelerate the roadworks program in that period of time. It has absolutely nothing to do with the smell, the sniff, the utterances of any election. We have done it consistently in MTW for the last 3 years. And I pray, whether I am minister or not, that we will continue from a finance perspective to put money behind the Ministry of Public Works to make sure that so long as the climate change is continuing to impact us in the way that it has, particularly in the July to December period, that we have an aggressive program in the Ministry of Public Works that facilitates road infrastructure, pothole patching, maintenance of bridges and the like, being done within the period that we have come to know now as our driest period. And that is not to say, Mr. Speaker, that we don't expect the unexpected, because we have seen that even when we say the periods are dry, we have also seen increases in rainfall sometimes out of the blue. Mr. Sabu cannot predict everything. He is no God, and therefore we have to prepare for the things that we need to prepare for to make sure that we are able to take care of this country. I will just say, Mr. Speaker, we have, and I will go, as I close, I think it is important that the country understands that we are grappling with a multitude of issues. And there has been talk of flooding in various districts and communities across the country. And for the first time, we have been able to start the process of flood engineering designs to be able to address these issues, because flooding impacts the homes and it impacts the roads as well. And we have several of those designs not only ongoing, but at an early stage of being able to actually go to have the civil works done. And God willing, we will be able to start the process of areas like Goodland Gardens and Trents and St. James and others within the next month or so that by the start of the next hurricane season, we hopefully will not find ourselves facing and encountering the challenges that we have encountered thus far. I heard the Honourable Member making pleas for roads to be done, specific roads. You know, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues are free, as Barbadians are, to advocate for roads to be done. But I remain absolutely resolute in the mission for which I have been sent here as Minister of Public Works, that I am not going to rush the brush. I am not going to appease ministers or colleagues simply because they are under pressure. We are all under pressure, sir. But I come from a time in opposition when only a handful of constituencies got any roadworks, and there were not opposition MPs who got roadworks in our constituency. There were only government members who got works done. We have had to take a position that roadworks must mean something, and that we needed to level the playing field to make sure that everybody got a piece of something that they could say a road or a bridge or some flood engineering was done in their communities. Mr. Speaker, I cannot stop members from speaking freely and representing their constituents, and I would not seek to do so. But what I will do, and I will continue to do, is to ensure that we allow for priorities to be given to those areas which are heavily trafficked, or highways certainly, and our major roads, and to then make sure that within communities we are able to allow people to breathe a little easier by being able to do tenantry roads and cart roads and residential roads. And if you look at the record, you will see that we have tried to apportion that type of approach across communities to be able to make sure that we start to ease the pressure. When you have come from a position of 10 years of doing very little, we have a lot to catch up on. And I continue to ask for the patience not only of the public, but certainly of my colleagues as well, and indeed you, Mr. Speaker, because you too and others have been advocating continuously for roads in your constituency. And whether it was mill and pave or focus roads, we have tried our best to be able to deal with each of the issues that have been presented. I believe those have been some of the major concerns raised by the Honourable Member for Christchurch South. I will reiterate areas like Highway 7. It is untrue that we only were planning to do a portion of Highway 7. We already have the designs completed for Highway 7. They were started in concept by the former minister, the first minister that we had in Christchurch West, and continued by the other minister and certainly by me. And we are at that stage now where having fixed a portion of the road because we had no choice, because it was one of our most heavily trafficked roads, that we have to now move to the point where hopefully in the next financial year, once we have the resources, we can start phase 1. But this administration and the Ministry of Public Works has not been sleeping on the job, but instead we have been getting designs off the table, off of files, off of the calling programs, Mr. Speaker, and sitting down seriously and actually doing the work and doing the heavy lifting that is necessary, that if I am not the minister, Mr. Speaker, any minister coming after can take from roundabout to bridge to road infrastructure to flood engineering design and get out there with the resources allocated to them and get them done. And that is what I come to work every day to make sure that is done. Just as we have taken a position in relation to fixed penalty notices, and we have taken in relation to demerit points, We have brought the first phase here today for modernization of our system to make sure that the frustration of the public is minimized. Because we hear the chatter from every angle, every corner of the country, asking the government to respond as we go through all of our communities. We hear it when we interface with people at various government departments, and in particular, the interface with the courts as well. Because everybody will not end up before the court, but for those of us who, for whether they practice or whether they have been, had an infraction that has caused them to get before the courts, the cry is often the same. There's very few people who say they had a good day in court, not just winning, but that they had a good day that did not result in an adjournment, that did not result in a day of time wasting. And I can say that the Honourable Member for St. Joseph, through his tenure as the Attorney General of this country, has brought legislation after legislation to start the process of being able to modernize the administration of justice, but also to modernize the system that we know as the legal courts in this country, to make it easier to do business in our courts. And for that, you know, sometimes you do not always see the light at the tunnel when you are going through the tunnel. You only see the light at the tunnel when you come out, sometimes at the other end. And then you realize that a lot of the work that has been put in, that it will be reaped in the near future, and the benefits of that labor will come to fruition, whether it is us or whether it is another party in the future, or whether it is another version of the Barbados Labour Party, that you will reap the fruits of the labor that you put in now in the future. And so, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy that we could bring this type of legislation here, another amendment to the Road Traffic Act, that we could improve the system as it is presently before us, and that I look forward to being able to bring before Cabinet on Thursday what we are proposing in terms of the penalties, but also an expansive list of, I think it's close to 60 different types of offenses now that we have laid out one by one, to be able to attract the various penalties, which will no doubt increase, but also to look at the demerit point system, which the country has also been calling for, to bring greater clarity to people who continue to be repeat offenders in the system. And we need to be able to deal with those persons in a fair and an impartial way that allows people to be able to go about their business with a certain degree of certainty. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't intend to take up too much time. I think that this has been a straightforward debate, and I look forward to, in the other place, what the members of the Honourable Members Party will say, because as I said, I think the Honourable Member for St. Joseph put things in perspective, that you cannot just support or not support things when it suits you, but you must be grounded in an understanding of the origin of legislation. And if it has originated with your party, not that you disassociate yourself from it when it suits you, but at least you acknowledge that you have been a party to the same legislation that you have refused to change over the last couple of decades as well. So with those few words, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill do not pass.
You read a second time. Second time. The question is that this bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do not leave the chair and that the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of the bill.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
This Honourable House is now in committee.
Clause 1.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 1 be amended to reflect the year 2026 and be amended from 2025. So it should read Road Traffic Amendment Number 2026.
The question is that Clause 1 be so amended to reflect 2026. All honourable members in favour say aye. Honourable members against say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
The question is that Clause 2 stand par. All honourable members in favour say aye. Honourable members against say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 3.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 3 do not stand part.
3 stand par. All honourable members in favour say aye. Honourable members against say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 4.
Chairman, I beg to move that Clause 4 do not stand part.
Question is that Clause 4 stand par. All honourable members in favour say aye. Honourable members against say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report the passing of one bill in committee to His Honour the Speaker. With amendments.
The question is that I do not report the passing of one bill in committee with amendments. All honourable members in favour say aye. Honourable members against say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Committees as reporting the passing of one bill in committee with amendment.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
The question is that this bill be read a third time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and cited as the Road Traffic Amendment Act 2026.
The question is that this bill be passed and so cited. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With that, we have come to the end of today's sitting. I therefore beg to move the adjournment of the House until Tuesday, the 13th of January at 10 a.m.
The question is that this honourable chamber be adjourned until Tuesday, the 13th day of January at 10 a.m. in the forenoon. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 13th day of January 2026 at 10 a.m. in the forenoon.